most of the people are trying to contact with me about I don't know, there are some sort of ad was disturbing me. So yes, okay, where are we? Do not shoot more than 800 ISO. Yes, if you are using a camera, that means you can adjust the ISO. Okay, and if you are increasing your ISO, that means you can brighten up your subject. Okay, it will be really good. Like if you are using ISO like 32,000 or 64,000 and your subject looks even better on brighter on the low light, yeah, it's really good, but it will create some noise. Okay, on the subject face is already bright, but if you have a really dark part, it will create some noise. Okay, and that noise is basically doesn't like noise. Yeah, if you have a really clean image, everyone likes that, but if you have a really noise, it's not gonna look good. Okay, so basically do not go more than 800 ISO, yeah, in the night. Yeah, so it will create some noise, and that noise will, it's kind of like a really difficult to remove. Okay, so yeah, place at least one light closest to the subject face. Okay, at the night, basically there is no sun, but there are the ambient light also. Okay, so put at least one single ambient light closest to the face of the subject. Okay, which is kind of like a really good, which is kind of like a being feels really creative and really nice, and you can properly expose the subject face. Okay, so it's really good. If you have a key light, then put the key light closest to the face. Okay, and it is also really good. But if you don't have a key light, find out there is the ambience light available. Obviously they are always available, so it just like find a lamp or some sort of street light. Okay, just try to put the subject which is closest to the light, that the face is kind of like a much brighter on that light. Okay, and you will capture it. It is gonna really good way. Use flash. Okay, but I'm recommending, if you are using a flash, try to ask a subject should I use a flash. Okay, if the subject is kind of like a know you or some sort of, which is because most of the photography, most of the subject is kind of like a really unknown. You are kind of like taking some photos with the random people. Okay, and some people will adjust with the flash, but some people doesn't really like the flash because and why? Because if they say, yeah, okay, I will handle the flash, but just suddenly the flash will came, the his face is gonna missed out, or his face gonna ek prakare it's not really good. They are not really familiar with the flash also. Yes, because you are talking with the random people and they didn't really face the flash every day, so basically they didn't know where to look, what to look, and it's kind of like a really not so good. Okay, there are many more flashes also available, like if you are using adjustable flash, which is also really good. You can bounce back light, and which is really great. Okay, and but if you are using a just camera flash, which is really flat to the surface, which is really flat to the subject, is not really good, because when you are using a flash to the subject, it just completely focus on the subject, and everything is kind of like a pitch black, everything looks really black. Okay, so yeah, is this tips is use a flash, yes, but I'm not recommending this thing. Okay, having a flash is really good on the some sort of situation, you can manage those situation, but if you, it's all depend upon you. Yeah, some people like a flash, some people don't like a flash, it's all depend upon them. Okay, use mobile light or screen also. Yes, don't have a light, no problem at all. Yeah, and don't have ambient light or street light, no problem at all. Just you have a phone, and you phone have a light or flashlight, you just you just use that flashlight to brighten up the subject, and which is also really good, which is really great for the subject. And some people doesn't really understand if you are using a really professional light or mobile light, yeah, but you need to put some sort of light on the subject face, which is also really good. Okay, shoot a manual mode, set f-stop less than 2.5. Okay, you if you are using a kit lens, or set the f-stop which is really minimum. Okay, if you are using kit lens, that means your f-stop will be 3.5. Okay, and 3.5, that means you are using really wide angle like 18 mm. Okay, and at that time you just need to put some sort of distance away from the subject, but it's kind of like a being really weird. Okay, I'm recommending ki it just like use 50 mm lens. 50 mm lens is really good, which is have also really which 50 mm, which is also prime lens. Prime lens means kind of like a really crystal clear image. Okay, and use f-stop will be almost you will get 1.5 to 1.8, and 1.5 1.8, which is also really shallow depth of field. So it's really good, it's really great. Okay, having that lens will be really great. 50 mm prime lens, which is really great for everything. Okay, use a prime lens. Okay, but if you don't have a prime lens, you just have a kit lens, then do not need to worry about that. Use kit lens. Okay, with f less than what is exactly why we are using f-stop will be really less than 2.5. Yes, if you are using shallow depth of field, that means your iris will open wider. Okay, and if the iris will open wider, that means more light came to the sensor. Okay, if you are kind of like a using f-stop will be more than 5 or 7 f or f9 or f10, that means your iris will be became really small. Okay, so that means very less amount of light will enter on the subject, so your photos will become really darker. Okay, so having a shallow depth of field, having a f 1.4 to 1.8 or less than 2.5, which is really great for the night photography. Okay, do not use long exposure shutter. Okay, do not use long exposure. Some people use long exposure shutter. I like long exposure photos, yes, but do not use long exposure at handheld. Okay, use tripod, because tripod is a really good for the long exposure, that your camera will stable and you just exposing your photos just like 2 seconds or sometimes like 1 seconds, and which will create some sort of light, trail light. Okay, like if you seen some of the photos which are kind of like a car is moving and the red light is kind of like a red tail light is coming, which is kind of like a really blur, but also really looks really good, trust me. Okay, so if you are using long exposure, so use a tripod, which is also really great. Okay, but if you don't have a tripod, then if you have a lens, so that's some sort of things you do need to understand. Like if you have 50 mm lens, that means you go to shutter by 1/50th. If you have 85 lens, go with the 1/85th of the second, which is also really standard for making some nice photo with really good shutter. But it's not the rule book. Okay, whatever you are using, it's all depend upon you. But important thing is that long exposure, use a tripod for the long exposure. It will create really nice depth, so use that one. Shoot raw. Okay, If you are using at night, go to the shoot with the raw, because raw will adjust everything. Okay, is like some photos is kind of like a really underexposed, but if you are shooting with the raw, so this image is kind of like a raw in format, so you can manually adjust the exposure, manually adjust yeah, mostly exposure, and then there is a so many things. Okay, is so many things will open if you are using a raw format. Okay, raw format will gives you really nice portability on the shooting on the image, so use raw. Use tripod for the uh, use tripod for the long exposure. I already told you, having a tripod which is also really great. Okay, so these are the tips for the night photography. Do you like it or not? You just, it's kind of like a tips that I can understand and I feel really great. Okay, so yes. So after that we are talking about